We continue now at the top of Daf Zayin Amid Beis Meseches Megillah. This is Megillah Daf 7b. The Gemara in the previous summit said that Rabbi Yehuda and Nesiya sent to Rabbi Oshia 2 portions. And so Rabbi Oshia sent back, Hayam to Banu Rabbeinu Mishloach Manos Ish L'Reyehu Umatanos Levyon. And by sending me these 2 portions, number 1, you've fulfilled Mishloach Manos Ish L'Reyehu, because you're sending me 2 portions. And also you're fulfilling Matanos Levyonim, because I'm a poor person, and you're giving me tzedakah. And the Gemara continues, Rabba Shadalei Mori Barmar. Rabba sent to Mori Barmar Biyad Abai, in the hands of Abai. In other words, Abai was the messenger to deliver this Mishloach Manos from Rabba to Mori Barmar. And he sent them the following, Mole Taspa de Kashba. So he sent them, this means a sack that's full of dates. Mole Kasa Kimcha Davshuna. And also he sent them like a cupful of Kimcha Davshuna, is a kind of dried wheat. Rashi over here says, Davshuna Shenisiavshua Achitim Betaner Ba'odin Carmel, the Kemach Shalahen Mosuk Liolam. The Kemach, this flour, is very sweet. You dry it in the tanner. So he sent them these 2 items. So Amar Le Abaya, so Abaya said to him, meaning Abaya said to Rabba, Hashta Amar Mori. Now Mori is going to say the following expression about you. He's going to say, Ichak lo malka, when a farmer becomes a king, lahave dikule mitzavore lo nachis. So still, the basket from his neck, it never comes down. As Rashi over here says, Hasal shaya ragel laholich bodena ben kfar, umachel levehemto, that basket that he usually has, that he uses to feed his animal, lo yorad atame rosho, even when he becomes a king, he never really stops with the mentality of being a farmer. Kach aton nasis melech v'rosh b'pumbedisa. So that's what Abaya was saying. You, Rabba, have become the head. You're like the Rosh Hashiva Pumbedisa. Ve'en chashaleach lo devarim hametzuyin l'kol, and you're sending him such simple portions as if you were still poor. You still have the mentality as if you were still a poor person. Again, so that's what it means. Dikula mitzavore lo nachis. This basket never comes down from his neck. So then the Gemara says, Hadar shadar le. So then, Mori Barmar, so he sent back something in the hands of Abaya. He sent back to Rabba. And so Hadar shadar le'yu mole taska de zangavila. So he sent him some ginger. He sent him a sack full of ginger. Umole kasa de pilpalta, and he sent him a cup that was full of pilpalta aricha, these long peppers. This was a more expensive item. And so the Gemara says, Amar Abaya. So Abaya said, Hashta Amar Mar. Now the master will say, Ano shadri lechulia. I sent him something that was sweet. V'iyu shadri chorf, and he sent me something that was sharp, that was pungent in return. And the Gemara continues, Amar Abaya. Abaya says, Kinafki mi bei mar. When I left the house of the master, meaning when I left Rabba's house, so have a savannah, I was satisfied, I was full, I had enough food. However, kimatoi losam, but when I got over there, meaning again, when I got to this house of Mori Barmar, so krivuli, so they brought me shisin tsoi, the shisin mine kedera, they brought me 60 plates of 60 different types of cooked items, v'achli behu shisin peluge, and I ate 60 portions from them, uvishula basrais, and then the last dish, have a korrelate slik hadar, so they called it like a pot roast. Uvoi lemechas tzoa basra, and I wanted to even the plate. I wanted to eat the plate right after it. I was still hungry. In other words, his point was like he came from Rabba's house. He thought he was full, but then when he gets to Mori Barmar's house, he sees he's actually famished and he's eating all the food. Amar Abaye, and so Abaye said on that, Hainu damrinchi. That's also the expression that people say, Kofen anya v'lo yada. A poor person can be starving. He doesn't realize how starving he is. Inami, another expression that would fit here, Ravcha levesi mashchiach. There's always room for something sweet, similar to the idea like there's always room for dessert. The Gemara continues, Abaya baravin, Reb Chanina baravin, Abaya baravin, and Reb Chanina baravin, mechalfi sudusayul hadadi. In order to fulfill the mitzvah of Mishloach Manos, they would just exchange seudos. One would give the other his seudah, the other would give back his own seudah, and again, that would be the way that they would both fulfill the mitzvah. And the Gemara continues, Amar Rava, Rava says, Mechayiv inish levasume bepuria. A person needs to become drunk on Purim, adelo yada ben or Haman levarach Mordechai, until he doesn't know the difference between cursed is Haman and blessed is Mordechai. And the Gemara now has a story. Rabbi Rabbi Zera, Avdu Su'udas Purim Bahade Hadadi. Rabbi and Rabbi Zera, they made a meal together on Purim. So Ivsum, so then he became drunk. And come Rabbi, Shachte le Rabbi Zera. Rabbi got up and he shechted, he killed Rabbi Zera. So drunk that he ended up killing him. Lamacha, the next day, boy Rachme, he davened, V'yache, and he brought him back to life. Lashana, the next year, Amar Lei said to him, Nesi Marvin Avid, Sudas Purim, Bahade Adadi. Let's get together again and let's make a meal together for Purim. Amar Lei, so he said back to him, Lo b'chol shaita v'shaita misrachesh nisa. You can't rely on a miracle every time. You were able to bring me back to life the first time. I'm not going to take that chance the second time. And the Gemara continues, Amar Rava, Rava says, Su'udas Purim sha'achla b'layla, lo yatzi yadei chova. So if you try to eat the Su'udas Purim at night, that does not fulfill the obligation of Su'udas Purim. Su'udas Purim needs to be eaten on the day of Purim. The Gemara says, my time, what's the reason? Yemei mishta v'simcha ksiv. The pasuk says Yemei, the days of feasts and celebration. It has to be during the day. And the Gemara continues, Rav Ashi have a Yosef Kami to Rav Kahana. Rav Ashi was sitting in front of Rav Kahana. Naga v'lo asur rabban. It started to get dark, and the rabbi still didn't come to learn. Amar Lei said to him, my time, v'lo asur rabban. Why aren't the rabbis coming? So he said, Dilma tridi b'sudas Purim. Maybe they're busy with the meal of Purim, so they haven't had a chance to come yet. Amar Lei, so he said back to him, v'lo have efshar l'meichla b'ursa. But couldn't they eat the night before? The night of Purim, what did they have to eat during the day for? Now they've lost their opportunity to learn Torah. So the Gemara says, Amar Lei said to him, Lo shmiya lemar, didn't the master hear, Hadamar Rava, that which Rava said. Rava said, Su'udas Purim sha'achla b'layla, that when it comes to the meal of Purim, if it's eaten at night, Lo yotzi yadei chovasu, he does not fulfill his obligation. So that wasn't an option. What you're suggesting that they should have eaten at night was not really an option. So Amar Lei, so he said to him, Amar Rava hachi, he said, is that really what Rava said? Amar Lei, and he said, yes, that's what Rava said. Tana minei arboin zimnin, so he learned this from him 40 times in order that he would remember it. V'damile command the manach bekise, and then it was like he had put it in his purse. Then it was like something that he really truly remembered. And the Gemara continues with the Mishnah, Ein bein Yom Tov l'Shabbos ala ochel nefesh bilvad. There's no difference between the halachas of Yom Tov and Shabbos, except for ochel nefesh when it comes to the preparations of foods. So then there are leniencies on Yom Tov that you don't have on Shabbos. And so the Gemara says, Hala inyan machshire ochel nefesh, but when it comes to machshire ochel nefesh, meaning doing something in order to prepare the food, so zev v'zeh shavin, apparently Yom Tov and Shabbos are the same. Machshire ochel nefesh apparently is not allowed on Yom Tov. And the Gemara says, Masnisan delok Reb Yehuda. Our Mishnah does not seem to follow the opinion of Reb Yehuda. The Tanya, as we learned in the Brisa, Ein bein Yom Tov l'Shabbos ela ochel nefesh. Tanakama says there's no difference between Yom Tov and Shabbos except for ochel nefesh. Rabbi Yehuda matir af machshirei ochel nefesh. Rabbi Yehuda says even machshirei ochel nefesh, even if you're doing work in order to prepare the food, that's also going to be allowed on Yom Tov. The Gemara says, my time of the Tanakama. What's the reason of the Tanakama? Amar Krotz, because the pasuk says who, and we learn out from the pasuk this, meaning who levado, only ochel nefesh, velo machshirav. You can't do machshirei ochel nefesh. For Rabbi Yehuda, and what does Rabbi Yehuda respond? Lochem l'chol tzorchechem. Lochem comes to teach you all of your needs, meaning even machshirei ochel nefesh is going to be okay. V'idach nami haksiv lachem. The other one, what does he do with lachem? Means to say lachem v'lo la'ovdei kochavim, means for you and not for the idol worshippers. In other words, you can prepare food for yourself on Yom Tov, but not for non-Jews. Lachem v'lo l'klavim, you can prepare for yourself. You can't prepare for the animals, for the dogs. V'idach nami, in the other opinion also, aksiv hu. What does he do with the word hu? So the Gemara says ksiv hu, ksiv lachem. It says both. It says the word hu, and it says the word lachem, and there's actually a distinction. Certain machshirin are going to be okay. Certain machshirin are not okay, according to Rabbi Yehuda. Kan b'machshirin she'efshar la'asoson me'erev Yom Tov. If you have machshirei ochel nefesh that you could have done from before Yom Tov, that you're not allowed to do on Yom Tov. Kan b'machshirin she'efshar la'asoson me'erev Yom Tov. But if you have machshirin that you couldn't do from before Yom Tov, that you're allowed to do on Yom Tov. We'll take a look at a few Rashis over here. Ein ben Yom Tov l'Shabbos. There's no difference between Yom Tov and Shabbos. Lios mutter l'chatchila b'Yom Tov masha aser b'Shabbos. The Mishnah is talking about things that you're allowed to do on Yom Tov that you can't do on Shabbos. But when it comes to punishments, there's a huge difference between Yom Tov and Shabbos. Shezeh b'skila v'karis v'zeh b'lav greda. Because when it comes to Shabbos, the punishment is skila and karis if you violate Shabbos. When it comes to Yom Tov, it's just a lav. It's just a negative commandment. And Rashi says further over here, she'efshar, what is an example of something that you could have done? A machshirei ochel nefesh you could have done before Yom Tov. Kagon saken shenifka me'erev Yom Tov. Let's say you have a knife and it had a pagam, it has a blemish on the knife from before Yom Tov, so that's something you could have fixed before Yom Tov. She'efshar kagon saken shenifka ma b'Yom Tov. But let's say you have a knife that got ruined on Yom Tov itself. That could not have been taken care of before Yom Tov. So that's a machshirei ochel nefesh. You can fix that knife. Again, that's it. You're fixing the knife in order to prepare food. So that's machshirei ochel nefesh, and that's something you couldn't do before Yom Tov, so you're allowed to take care of it on Yom Tov according to Rabbi Yehuda. And the Gemara continues with the Mishnah, Ein bein Shabbos liyom HaKippurim. There's no difference between Shabbos and Yom HaKippurim. Ela shezeh zedono b'dei adam v'zeh zedono b'karis. When it comes to Shabbos, so then the punishment, let's say you do something on purpose and you violate Shabbos, your punishment is going to be in Bezdin, b'dei adam, by people. But when it comes to Yom Kippurim, if you violate Yom Kippur, so then the punishment is going to be karis. That's a punishment b'dei shamayim. And so the Gemara says, Hala inyan tashlumin. But when it comes to payments, zev v'zeh shavin, it seems like they have identical halachas, and the Gemara will explain this. The Gemara says, Mani Masnisan. Who's the author of our Mishnah? Rabbi Nechunya ben Hakona. The author of our Mishnah is Rabbi Nechunya ben Hakona. The Tanya, as we learned in a Brisa, Rabbi Nechunya ben Hakona haya oses Yom Kippurim kashabbos. Rabbi Nechunya ben Hakona would say that Yom Kippur and Shabbos are equal in this regard, l'tashlumin, in terms of payments. Ma Shabbos mischayev benafsho upater min hatashlumin. The halacha by Shabbos is, let's say you violate Shabbos, and at the same time that you violate Shabbos, you also do something where you have to pay somebody. You made somebody lose money, you damaged somebody's property. Halacha is, since that same action caused you to be chayev misa, so the chayev misa makes you pater from paying. You're chayev benafsho, you're pater min hatashlumin. Af Yom Kippurim, so too it's true, the same thing by Yom Kippur. Mischayev benafsho pater min hatashlumin. If you're chayev, in this case karis, it's not a chayev bidei adam, like on Shabbos. You're not chayev in bezdin misa, but you're chayev karis, and you're going to be pater min hatashlumin. And Rashi over here explains, Af Yom Kippurim mischayev benafsho de iser karis kamisas bezdin dami. The point over here of the Gemara is that karis is identical to misas bezdin when it comes to this issue, that if you get the punishment of karis, you're not going to have to pay money. Upturim milashalim. Rashi gives an example. Let's say you light a fire to your friend's property on Yom Kippur. So here you violated Yom Kippur, there's a chiyav misa, but there's not going to be a payment anymore. You're not going to have to pay for this gadish of your friend. Again, the point is, again, if you're chayiv misa in this case, so then you burn down the person's gadish, that's, let's say, the pile of straw of the person, whatever it is. So in that situation, you're not going to be chayiv to pay. That is what our Mishnah is saying, and that's the opinion of Reb Nechunya ben Hakana. And the Gemara continues, Tanan Hasam, we learned in a Mishnah over there, this is a Mishnah in Meseches Makos, Kol chayve krisos shalaku, nifteru midei krisasa. It says in the Mishnah that anybody who's chayiv kares, and let's say that individual gets malchus, so they're no longer going to get the kares. Shenemar, like the pasuk says, V'nikla achicha le'einecha. Your brother is going to be dishonored in front of your eyes. And we darshan as follows. Kevan shalaka, the halacha is, once the person gets malchus, harehu ki achicha, he has the status of achicha, he's like your brother, he's no longer chayiv kares. In other words, the Mishnah over there is saying, if you're chayiv kares, you get malchus, you're pater from your kares. Divrei Rabbi Chananya ben Gamliel, this is the opinion of Rabbi Chananya ben Gamliel. Amar Rabbi Yochanan, and Rabbi Yochanan said, Chaluk and all of Chaveira of Rabbi Chananya ben Gamliel. Rabbi Chananya ben Gamliel's friends, they argued upon him in this halacha. He said that you're pater from kares, and they argue against him, and they say you're still chayev kares. And the Gemara continues, Amar Rava, Rava says, Amri bei Rav, they said in the yeshiva of Rav, Tanina, we learned in our Mishnah, Ein ben Yom Kippurim l'Shabbos, ela shezeh zedono bidei adam, v'zeh zedono bi kares. It said there's no difference between Yom Kippur and Shabbos, except on Shabbos you get punished by people in Bezdin. But when it comes to Yom Kippur, you're getting punished in Shamayim, you're getting kares. So 1 second, they say it doesn't make sense. V'im isa, if it's really true what you just said, that somebody who's chayev kares can get malchus and then gets out of the kares, so idi v'idi bidei adam, he really, even somebody who's chayev kares is really getting a punishment bidei adam, because even someone who's chayev kares, ultimately he can get lashes, he'll get the lashes, and then he's not going to be chayev kares anymore. So how are you making this distinction that it's not bidei adam? It is bidei adam, even by kares. That's in the hands of man. It's kares, it's going to be malchus. And so the Gemara says, Amar Rav Nachman says, Ha money, no, who is the author of this Mishnah which says that it's bidei shamayim? Rabbi Yitzchaki. That's actually Rabbi Yitzchak's opinion. There's different opinions on this. The Omar malchus b'chayve krisos leka. Rabbi Yitzchak's opinion happens to be that when you're chayev kares, you don't get malchus at all. In other words, some people hold that when you're chayev kares, you can be given malchus. Rabbi Yitzchak holds that when you're chayev kares, you're not given malchus. The Tanya, as we learned in a Braisa, Rabbi Yitzchak Omer, Rabbi Yitzchak says, chayve krisos bechlal hayu. There were all these cases in the Torah about people who were chayev kares for various illicit relationships, for various arayas. V'loma yod says kares bachoso. So therefore, why does the Torah have to specify by a person's sister, has to go out of its way and say kares? We already said kares goes on all these cases. Why does the Torah identify kares specifically by achoso, when a person has a relationship that's not allowed with a sister? Laduna b'kares v'lo b'malchus. That pasuk, it goes out of its way to say kares, to say it's only kares and there's no malchus. That's Rabbi Yitzchak's opinion, that you only get kares, you don't get malchus in a situation of kares. And so that's what the Gemara is answering over here. The Gemara is saying our Mishnah, which says that Yom Kippurim is a punishment bidei shamayim, that follows Rabbi Yitzchak's opinion that there's no malchus by cases of kares. Rav Ashi says afilu temer Rabbanan. You could even say that our Mishnah follows the opinion of the Rabbanan. It even follows the opinion of the Rabbanan that in situations of kares you could get malchus. Ze ikar zedono bidei adam. What the Mishnah simply means is, here the main punishment is bidei adam. By Shabbos, when you violate Shabbos, the main punishment is bidei adam. Ze ikar zedono bi kares. And over here, in a situation of Yom Kippur, the main punishment is actually kares. And Rashi over here explains, afilu temer Rabbanan hi. You can even say our Mishnah is the Rabbanan. The Amri malchus eitzel kares, who say that you could get malchus in situations of kares. And even so, you don't have to say that they disagree with Rabbi Hananya ben Gamliel. Again, Rabbi Hananya ben Gamliel said that in a situation of karis where you get malchus, you have no karis. And so over here, we seem to be saying the punishment is bidei shamayim. Now, if you're getting malchus and it takes away the karis, there is no punishment bidei shamayim. So how could it be that they agree with Rabbi Hananya ben Gamliel? But the Gemara explains very simply. And here's what the Mishnah actually means. Shabbos ikar chomer zadono bidei adam. By Shabbos, the main punishment is bidei adam. But over here by Yom Kippur, ikar chomer zadono bi kares. The main punishment is generally going to be kares. Umiyum hisru bo v'laka miftar. Nevertheless, if you were warned for malchus and you happen to get malchus, and again the Rabbanan say it's possible to get malchus by a case of karis, so if you were warned for malchus and you got malchus, it's true, you're going to get out of the karis. But in most standard situations, according to the Rabbanan, the punishment is going to be karis, and therefore our Mishnah could be the Rabbanan. And not only that, the Rabbanan might agree with Rabbi Hananya ben Gamliel that in theory, if you get malchus, there's no karis. That's just not what the Mishnah is talking about. And we'll continue with this discussion in the next video on Daf Ches Amud Aleph.